5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mike Colón, welcome to the No Boundaries podcast, episode 2. Glad you're here. On the beginning of this, as I've communicated to you, I wanted to take the opportunity to use this as a platform to have conversations with really close friends of mine and kind of create a little vignette of those people. And you're obviously one of those people, which is why you're here. For the people listening, I met Mike in 2019. He was ironically my wedding photographer, and we went down to the Salton Sea and met up at this little like divey place with dollar bills like stapled everywhere, and it was kind of like a scene out of a movie. And you just came in with like amazing energy, and we just sat there and started rapping and talking and having fun and like getting to know each other, and it was almost like it was just us in an odd way for a little bit. And then we went and did the shoot, and it was like this crazy cool little concept on the motorcycle and in this like weird, something out of like Mad Max kind of environment. Yeah,
I like that location.
And it was so cute because you were like so stoked, and you just wanted to keep going, and then we felt bad because you had actually like kind of gone out of your way to help us out and do something for us, and you didn't even know us. And it was kind of funny because you just got so excited that you just wanted to keep going, and we left there, and you're like, let's go down to the dunes and let's shoot some shots at the dunes. So we're like, cool, if you want to do it, if you like it, we love it. And so we went down there, and we literally had to ask you, we had to tell you we were done because you were so exuberant and having such a good time. And I'll just never forget that. And, you obviously shot our wedding and did all that kind of stuff, or shot my wedding and did all that kind of stuff. And then we just somehow just became friends from that and always stayed in touch. And I've just really loved your friendship. I've learned a lot from you. I've really appreciated having you in my life. And so thinking and knowing that you're an amazing man, I just wanted to sit here and have an opportunity to have a conversation about who you are so that other people can have the benefit of knowing the man behind the camera, who is Mike Colón. Welcome to the No Boundaries podcast, everyone. I'm truly glad that you're here. And if you're watching this video, you're literally one of the first. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to ask you one simple favor. If you enjoy this video and the content that I create, please take the time to hit that subscribe button. It'll help this channel grow more than you know. It'll allow me to continue to scale the production and lure in better and better guests over time, which obviously is my goal. I candidly went a long time consuming a lot of content on YouTube without hitting that subscribe button. But once I realized how valuable it is and how meaningful it is, I hit that thing rigorously on content that suits my interests. It literally costs us nothing, but yet is so exceptionally meaningful. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy this video.
Yeah. I was just thinking because you have some Yeti cups here, and I still have this. It's like a 36-ounce Yeti water bottle.
The little tan one with your signature on it.
I brought that. I just got it the day that I met you guys for that engagement session. Yeah. And I remember I was walking towards that little restaurant.
Dropped it.
You remember that?
Yeah, and you dinked it, and you're like, man.
It was like it was brand new, not a scratch. And I dropped in this big chunk out of the side. Like literally like put a big corner into that water bottle. So
right below your perfect signature.
I've had it a while. Yeah, I've had it a while, and it's really beat up now. But I think of you when I look at all those scratches for some reason.
Hopefully affectionately.
Yeah, I know. It's cool. Yeah, that's why I'll never throw it away. It's like it's been around. Been around the block. But dude, thanks for having me. This is pretty cool. I like your setup.
Yeah, I hope to have you on.
I know this was a long time in the works, and I respect that you followed through.
Yeah, it took a lot longer than I thought it would take in my mind's eye, but I'm happy to be here.
And then everything takes longer. Everything takes longer than you think, and the fact that you're following through is rad. So I'm super stoked to be here.
Now we just gotta hope that everybody listening hits the like and subscribe button so that we can monetize the podcast.
There you go. So it's sustainable.
But I wanted to, talk about our relationship. I'm one of the things to start off is I'm not a man of faith, and you are, and despite that, I feel like every time we get together, we have beautiful, understanding, loving, intellectual, fun conversations. And I've never once felt judged by you for not being someone.
Oh, I've judged you.
I'm sure you prayed for me.
Prayed for you.
But it's really been a thing I appreciate because I think we were talking about this earlier via text that I consider myself. I heard this new term this last week when my little brother's in town because he's Christian. He's 18, just graduated high school. He's going to the Air Force.
Oh yeah.
And while he was here, I heard this term cultural Christian, which is basically you kind of.
Yeah, you said that in a text message to me recently, and I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, and I meant to get back to you and I didn't. But it's essentially you grow up in that kind of environment and you share the same values and stuff like that, but you don't necessarily believe what I would call the fables of the Abrahamic religions or whatnot. Like, you don't get your core values and stuff from that, but you share that commonality and you celebrate the holidays and you do all that stuff out of community and communion, but you're not necessarily a person that believes, what Christians believe about Jesus and God and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, one of the reasons I think we are really good friends is because our core values, despite that, are very aligned. And so anytime I'm with you and anytime I'm around you, I feel totally relaxed and I feel like I can be 100% myself, and I feel like there's nothing but love from you, and that's something I've always enjoyed. And sharing that with people, I'd love to get your perspective on all that, because you've been on the other side of that relationship of having a relationship with me, being not a person of faith, but never once allowing me to feel it. So I'm just curious your perspective.
I mean, I feel the same way. I feel like we could be real with each other. We always have, like not non-surfacey conversations, like we'll go deep and talk about religion, but it's never like hostile or like you say, like when we leave the conversation, the same people. It's not like we're like trying to change each other. We're just thinking out loud. Yeah. And even trying to, like, for me, I like seeing the other side of things, from someone who is a non-believer, trying to get in their head. Cause like in my mind, it's crazy. like you're crazy, to not believe, but you're probably thinking I'm crazy to believe. So, I just pray God reveals himself to you in that way where you like, and that might sound weird coming from, but, I think that's what it takes. It's not like something that you just like have to like figure out. I feel like for me, it was just natural. Like the faith part was natural. Like I see God everywhere and everything, and it'd be like crazy for me not to believe that, Yeah. So then when we're out in Yosemite, I'm just like, look at the stars.
And I'm like, that's outer space. That's the universe. And like, what did God say about that? And you're like,
I'm like, look at your hand. How do you explain that? But no, I really appreciate even just chilling and hanging out and having conversations, and I like how you've like you're talking about recently, how you're pursuing like a new group of friends or a core group of friends, and you're being very very intentional about that. And I think, especially at my age, like I think that like real friendships are few and far between. You find like you get obsessed with your family and kind of consumed by your family, and then you're not like really invested in relationships. So like when you reached out to me to like hang out, or I think for the first time, that was really cool. And getting to know you, I think it's good. It's good.
How has your life experience been as far as how you've moved through friendship? Because that's one of the things I'm learning now is, I joined the Navy really young, and had some different things go on in my life when I was younger that caused me to move around a lot, and going from Colorado to San Diego, and I've always been kind of transitionary. And as I've moved along in life, I found myself trying to hold on to old friends. And part of being in my marriage for 10 years, when I got out of it, when I was in it, I didn't have a lot of space to enjoy my friends and to invest in those relationships and to experience them and to do the normal things you would do. And so I thought when I exited that situation and had some autonomy again, that I would just kind of pick up where I left off with a lot of people. And one of the things I realized is like how much, you can kind of grow apart. People move different, people's lives change, but then also you change. Yeah. And you can sit there and have a conversation with someone that you kind of considered a friend or have memories with, and then realize that like it's just not there. And I think some people just hold on to that for familiarity. And what I've kind of learned to do recently is just wipe the slate clean and like clean out the garage, if you will, or the cupboard, and start putting things back intentionally.
Yeah, I think like I was just talking with a buddy of mine the other day, and we talked for like 3.5 hours because we hadn't touched base in maybe like, I don't know, a year or two. We haven't talked. And sometimes we'll meet up. His name's Robert. I call him Bobby, growing up, but we talked for 3.5 hours, and it was really cool just kind of reminiscing about the old days, like from elementary school, like first grade all the way through 12th grade. We have a lot of stories and so I think it's really cool in that regard. And just to kind of like when you're talking with someone you've been friends with for so long, you kind of feel at home. Like it reminds you kind of where you came from and who you are.
And nostalgia. And,
it brings all that back. So I think it's really fun. And it gives you a sense of like you want to invest and keep it going. You want to like I'm always like, dude, let's get together. Like, why don't we like plan? Well, let's call Lewis. Let's call Matt. Let's call, Mark. Let's get everyone kind of together, And why do we wait so long?
Yeah.
But and the reality is everyone's kind of living their lives, and you're just really whoever's around you. That's kind of who's there, and whoever has something in common with you at that moment. Maybe you lean towards them because you can have fun with them, and they're doing the same things you're doing. But
and they may be seasons in your life. Like, we spent a lot of time together recently, and I hope to continue doing that. But 6 years from now, maybe your kids are out of the house and you and Julie decide you want to go move to, some other place, or whatever.
It's kind of good to just focus on what's in front of you, right? And like just really get the most out of everything and invest. But there is something to be said for investing in long-term friendships and new friendships. There's that old camp song. It's like, make new friends and keep the old. One is silver, the other gold. But it's like, I don't like not talking to old friends for too long. And it's the same thing with my family, like my brother, my sister. Like I want to touch base with them and not let that die, and not let time go too far without catching up. I don't know why.
Do you find you're the person that's typically reaching out to your friends? Do you think it's mostly reciprocal, or is it kind of a mix?
Lately I feel like I'm the one.
Yeah.
Like maybe because I'm at that stage in my life. Most of my friends that are like really close with me, they're kind of 10 years behind me. Yeah. So they're all in the heat of the young kids stage. And even you have,
Bella running around my little Tasmanian devil. Yeah.
That's like consumes you. And I remember what it was like. So I feel like it's kind of like on me. And I always think about, the people that were less busier when I was in that, and I kind of expected them to reach out to me. Like, dude, don't even expect me to reach out. Like, just pull me out of this once in a while and take me somewhere,
Yeah.
So I try to like do that and like call my friends and make something happen, take them camping, take them somewhere. And, try not to get my feelings hurt. Like, dude, like, how come I'm the only one doing that,
Yeah.
But
I found that has been me, but as I'm learning, I'm in the season in my life where I'm learning to receive. And I've always had this people-pleasing nature where, I go out of my way subconsciously and sometimes consciously to like make everybody happy and make everybody feel good. And that's something I've learned about myself and grown to understand. And so now I'm more sitting back and just focusing on myself, and then focusing on like core friends, like I said, like you, that I know the value in the friendship. And so why waste time trying to look for new ones or spending time with people that don't bring the same quality of conversation and connection. Yeah. And so that's where I've always focused on our relationship. And I love, like, we go to Yosemite. We try to go to Yosemite every year, like twice a year. And that's been really great. You're much more of an outdoorsman than I am, but I think next time we go, I'll be keeping up with you. I think the funny story for the listeners is we went to Yosemite, and at the time I was like 300 pounds. This was like 2 or 3 years ago. And we went to climb Lindbergh Dome, and I packed this like huge pack, which was a duffel bag, not even a pack that like you could strap around your hips or whatever.
Yeah.
And started like climbing up side of Lindbergh Dome.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I just like couldn't hack it. And you just like had a pack on, plus you grabbed my pack and were like hand holding it and like climbing Lindbergh Dome with one hand, and I'm sitting there like huffing and whatever,
Well, I didn't want to carry you, so I figured that would help, Like, you were starting to, like, I don't know, did you have asthma or something was going on?
No, I was just out of shape. I just I had been sedentary for a number of years. I was working in private equity.
You're in good enough shape where you're going to be carrying my pack this time. That's carrying me.
I'm trying to make you proud,
No, you've lost. How much weight have you lost?
I'm down 50 pounds since May, so it's 4 months.
That's crazy. I can't even lose like 10 pounds. I just can't lay off the ice cream. So.
Well, you don't have as much weight on you as I do.
still, the discipline to lose 50 pounds.
I'm sure you gain like 3 pounds and you like feel it or whatever. I gained 3 pounds. You couldn't tell. I probably look like I lose weight depending on where it is.
Time to lose some weight,
Yeah, but it's been good, and jiu-jitsu's been a real help, and that's something that you didn't help inspire me. I've always wanted to do it, but just being around you, and you had always started talking about like, hey, let's go roll. And
we talked about that on your engagement session, standing on the sand dunes. I remember we were like, hey, dude, let's like get together. And like, you're like, I want to get back into it
because you were telling me you do competitions and all that kind of stuff, and and that was 2019, so it took me 5 years. But I'm glad I'm in it now, and I'm sure you'd love to talk about your experience in jiu-jitsu. For me, it's just been exactly what I thought it would be. I did jiu-jitsu in the Navy I trained with the Navy SEALs. I did something called Visit Board Search and Seizure, which is like, if you've ever seen the movie Captain Phelps,
Yeah.
where it's like counter piracy stuff. You go board ships and look for drugs and contraband.
Sick.
And as part of that, we train with the SEAL teams for like 2 months. And we do close quarters combat stuff and Kimuras and triangles and all that. And so it was within me, but I hadn't done it in a really long time, but I knew I loved it. And so getting back on the mat has been great for that aspect, the physical part of it, like getting in your body and feeling comfortable as a man. I mean, I can tell you honestly, I'm 6'3", I'm a big dude, but when I was 300 pounds and out of shape, I didn't feel confident in my ability to rise to the occasion if, I was going toe to toe with a man that wasn't out of shape and overweight. And so,
I mean, weight could work in your advantage too.
yeah, but
especially
you got to have
jiu-jitsu.
lungs.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to the jiu-jitsu gym, I could barely get through the warm up, and then we started rolling a little bit, and just like not a lot, just a little bit, and I had to tap just because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't recruit enough oxygen.
Yeah.
Now I can roll all day long. I do the comp class and all that kind of stuff, but it's definitely been helpful in that regard, and then also just the community. Like obviously, people that are focusing on something like that are focusing on self-betterment. And they care about community. So like the second I walked in there, I'm sitting down and people are coming up and talking to me and trying to get to know me and making me feel like family very instantaneously.
Yeah, it is a family.
Yeah, and like when you walk in there, it's just like it's like getting to go to Thanksgiving dinner several times a week.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like I've been injured for the last few weeks, and I'll stop in there just to see my friends.
Just to see their face, yeah.
And they're like, Mike, how come you're not training? What happened? And I'm like, oh, I got this little thing, but I'll be back. But I just go in there because I feel like I miss my family, and I don't want them to forget about me or something, So I go in there, I'm like, hey, just show my face. I'm like, what's up, guys? And I like to watch them roll and stuff. But yeah, it is a family, dude. It's like I've been training now for 16 years or something, and it's all the same guys. Like we've been together.
All come up together,
sweating on each other, just like close quarters. There's a lot of trust, and we have a lot in common. So
I feel like you can learn who someone is on the mat, because
totally.
How they roll with you, how they kind of like communicate
You can almost
or whatever.
tell if you're going to get along with them off the mats.
Yeah.
When you're rolling with them on the mat, like which ones.
And it's very
vibe
subtle.
with.
It's very subtle, but I feel like you can tell by when you're touching another human being and they're touching you back in that environment, like who they are. It's weird.
How they touch you.
Yeah.
You find out a lot.
Ever so softly. So what got you, we've never had this conversation, but what originally got you into jiu-jitsu, and what are the things in your life that you feel like you've really taken away from that in particular? Like if you hadn't done jiu-jitsu, you probably wouldn't have that tenet or that frame of reference in your mind.
Oh, so much. Well, my brother got me into it. He was doing it way back when like no one really knew about jiu-jitsu. It was like Vale Tudo, it was like back in the days when like the Gracie, those videos were going viral, like those, and that was like VHS, back in those days, he would show them to me and be like, yeah, check this guy out. He's picking a fight with, or some big dude on the beach is picking a fight with him. He takes him down and he's like pounding him and starts, he got me into it, and he always would bug me and try to get me to train with him. I remember we'd be at like Gold's Gym in Fullerton, and he'd be like upstairs on the mats, pulling me up there, like showing me a triangle, showing me moves, and then we'd like scrap and spar. And back then I had like long surfer hair, so it was all in my face.
I've never seen that.
Oh, look at Julie's Instagram. She just posted a picture of like from way back when we were dating. I got like long hair. I'm like, why do you post that? It's terrible. But I remember thinking like, when I'm ready to cut my hair, I'm going to do jujitsu because this is not working,
It's definitely not a good idea to have hair when you're doing jujitsu.
Yeah.
It gets pulled a lot, but.
Yeah. And I think jujitsu helps you lose your hair because you're rubbing your head all over the mats.
Every time I leave the mat, there's a couple curls here and there from
I say my bald spots from playing guard and like, sliding on the mat when they're trying to stack you. They just slide back on your hair. And then eventually you get a nice bald spot there. But no, jujitsu, like, my brother got me into it, and there was a period where I'm like, I'm starting my family, I'm starting my business, I don't have time for that. But then I was playing sports, I was snowboarding a lot, I was playing tournament softball, which like those were kind of my sports. And then I was getting bored with these sports, and I was like also getting out of shape, And so I started going to the gym, and I'm like in the gym just watching the clock, really just hating the gym, and thinking like, what can I do that's fun, that's going to get me in shape. And I in the back of my mind, I knew I was going to eventually do jiu-jitsu. And so I called my brother up and I'm like, hey, I'm ready. And he had kind of just started thinking about getting back into it. Like he had kind of taken a break on it too. So I said, listen, and at that time I had like more money than time. I was just like really busy with my business. It was kind of going well.
Yeah.
And so I told my brother, I said, listen, you find the best school, I'll pay for it. Like you do the research and do that work and find us a school.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's like, you got to hire Hoist Gracie to come to give us private. It's like, I want to do this and I want to do it right. I don't want to go into some crappy school and learn bad technique, like let's go. If we're going to learn this, I want to learn the right way.
I feel like that's emblematic of both and that's another thing we share in common, like the way you approach life. Like, I don't think there's anything I've ever seen you do that you've done half-assed.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Whether it's the outdoor stuff, like if people could see, and maybe we'll post a picture at the end, you're like your outdoor rig,
Yeah.
and your bikes and your house, and like everything has its place. And I can just tell, like, even like for me with this podcast, it was like a lot of people just start and they're in their office or whatever with like a webcam and they just start talking on the mic. And I just couldn't bring myself to do that. I was like, this is me. This effort and this whatever, and get it right. And I want to do it right the first time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys that talk about podcasting like, oh, look at my first episode. It was nothing. And maybe it would have been better if I did it that way. But my personality, I am who I am.
You're like, go look at my first podcast. Yeah. It was something.
Then it can only get better from there, right? So start here and imagine it'll be droves better than, relatively than.
I mean, I kind of think like that. Like if you build it, they will come, like just do it right the first time, invest in it, and people will notice and they know you're taking it seriously, and it'll just be more successful right off the bat, but jiu-jitsu is like that for me. I'm like, I hate being mediocre at things. It's the competitiveness. I'm very competitive. So it's like, even in photography, I was super competitive when I was marketing my business and going like full speed with that.
You're like doing finger trigger exercises to make sure that you have the stamina.
Yeah. How, like doing film loading races and stuff, who can load film faster. No, but I knew that if I was going to do jiu-jitsu, I wanted to learn it right. And, I didn't have as much time as I wanted.
So you want to get as much quality out of it as you can.
I wanted to learn to be efficient and learn it right. So my brother found Gracie Baja, and they just had like started a school in Lake Forest. And then that was like, it was brand new. And he's like, dude, the Gracies are in Orange County. Like, these are the guys who kind of like
have arrived,
bringing it to America, and these are the guys you want to learn from. And I went to a few schools that he was like thinking about joining, and I was like, no. Like, I remember bringing my camera and photographing him rolling on the mats, and then listening to the instructors and stuff, and just being like, I don't understand that guy, and I don't really like the style. It seems unorganized. And then when I went to Gracie Baja for like the first time, I was like, yes, this is it. I remember taking a class and then signing up for a year the first day.
You just bit the bullet and you're like, I'm doing this.
Yeah. And we signed both of us up for a year. And I was like, we're doing it. And I told myself, I'm going to be a black belt. That first day, I was like, I want to be a black belt. Like, this is a school and I want to be a black belt. And I knew it was like an 8 to 10 year thing, but I was like, or they told me 6 to 8 years depending on injuries. I was like, I'm in. I'm going to be 40. Like I said, I'm going to be 40 anyways. I might as well be a black belt too. And so that was like the beginning of my path. And then I think the reason jiu-jitsu was so attractive to me was because I can go somewhere and nobody knew my name. Like photography, I was like so concerned about everyone knowing my name. It was a big marketing thing, and keeping
a persona and interacting with people and being on. Yeah.
Yes, always on, always like trying to present the good and not show the bad. Like this whole marketing thing, like building up. And I don't know, I did so much of that where I was afraid to show anybody my true self. And so when I went into jiu-jitsu, I was like, I don't want anyone to know who I am in photography, or I don't want anyone, I just want to be like the lowest white belt, the most humble. And if I ever do photography for this school, it's going to be like free, and I'm not going to, charge them anything. And it's going to be, and I don't want to network here. I don't want to market. I just want to like,
I want to keep this cordoned off and siloed from that part of my life.
Jiu-jitsu was something that was not about marketing. It was like, marketing to me had become this thing that was like sizzle to the steak, like it was like smoke and mirrors. It was like you could fake it and then people believed that you're good and they start hiring you, and it was a lot of faking it.
Yeah.
And I felt very fake in my business, I think, because of all the marketing I had done. And so jiu-jitsu was like a kind of a breath of fresh air for me. It was like I can go there and you either are better or you're worse than somebody. Yeah. You either tap someone out or they tap you out. There's no marketing to it. It was like, and now I realize that there is some marketing to like the top guys.
Yeah,
there's some marketing, but
you got to make sure people know what you're doing, and the committee has their eyes on you to get your belt. You know what I mean? Or else you could just be like lost in
Yeah. I was in this place in my business where I was like, I felt like people were faking it, and then it was creating competition for me, and I was like, this isn't fair. I've been doing this longer than them. How are they stealing work from me? And I maybe a little angry about that. And then when I went to jiu-jitsu, I didn't want any of that stuff. I was like, I love jiu-jitsu because it's black and white. You tap or it's like there's no
You got
fluff.
it or you don't.
Yeah. It's like you can't fake it in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You either know or you don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was so refreshing to me. And it was an escape from my life and my business that I really didn't know what to do with at that point in my life. I was just like, and it was a way to get in shape. And
you brought your kids into it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my youngest is into it. The other one's kind of like came and went and did a little bit, but Evan's kind of into it. Yeah.
And how's that experience been? I have Bella, and she's 3.5, as you know, and she just got her second stripe yesterday.
That's so
very
rad.
proud
She's
of
starting
that.
so young.
Yeah, she's all about it. She's just a very physical kid.
Yeah.
And I just want to embrace that. So we've got all this kind of stuff in the house for her to climb on, and she climbs on us, and she does ballet and all kinds of stuff. But I took her rock climbing the other day. There's a place up here called The Post. And so I took her and put her on belay, and they have like a pink wall where it's just like nothing but grips all the way up, so she can kind of just do her thing. And I have a little Petzl ID harness that I put her in, and she just right to the top. So yeah, I mean, jiu-jitsu's been great for her because I think
it's so good for kids,
especially women. I think for anybody, but for women, I want my daughters to feel comfortable in their body, which jiu-jitsu will obviously do, and then also be able to protect themselves, be
able to take down a man.
Yeah, not but like get away, or not be in such a vulnerable position.
Like daddy's not always going to be there for her, and she might need jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. And I think it helps with the mind.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think for me, going through what I've been through the last couple of years, and going through a divorce, and kind of hitting the low point in life, and quitting my job, and being overweight, and my mind was in a terrible place, and there was just a lot of noise and a lot of negativity and a lot of criticism and loneliness, and you name the emotion, it was in there bouncing around. And one of the books I read about how to kind of heal from the stuff that I'd been through, the trauma that I experienced in my life, talks about how when you experience trauma, you get out of your body. And animals, when that happens to them, they get attacked and say they get away. They go through this weird process where they shake and they kind of like exert it, and they get up and they go, and they're not walking around like there's a lion creeping behind them for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But for human beings, we don't have that process. Something happens to us and we just kind of power through it and keep going, and it gets stored in our body and it gets stored in our nervous system. And they talked about the way to get that out of you is to connect with your body. And there was this like regimen they talked about or whatever. And I honestly didn't implement it. But when I got into jiu-jitsu, and you're moving around and you're wrestling with somebody and grappling and rolling with them, like there's no way you can't feel your body. Like that's all you can feel in that moment is your body.
Connection. Yeah.
And so I feel like that has been super healing. And then just the fitness that comes with it. Like I've always had shoulder issues and hip and back and and still a little bit, but it's like I feel myself coming back into myself, and I feel my body being stronger and having stamina and all those kinds of things. And you connect that with your body. And it's just, I feel like I've come back, and I feel like jiu-jitsu is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest decision I made for myself to get myself back.
You learn so much about your body in jiu-jitsu. You learn like how your body heals. Like you just learn like so much. You learn where you're weak. Yeah, exactly.
My hips.
Yeah. And man, like everything's revealed in jiu-jitsu, but it's rad because you get like this connection with your body, and you almost become like a self-diagnosing doctor for yourself. And like, it's like, but it's just so healthy. I think it's healthy for your mind. I think every man and woman, but mostly men, I think we're designed, not just, designed as buzzword there for you. We're designed by God to be physical, to like, and even like, I don't know, wrestle. Like to wrestle. Yeah. Like I feel like
I think about it, it just Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson had a podcast. I can't remember the guest's name, but he has a camp where people wrestle with each other and get physical to kind of like get back into their body. And they'll do like rock climbing, or they'll do like little wrestling competitions where they'll have a man stand on like a beam or whatever, and a woman stands on the beam, and then they kind of hand fight or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just losing my train of thought.
It's like a play. You could play, and you could also defend yourself.
That was what I was thinking. He was talking about play and how important that is and how much we lack that in today's society. And the example he was given talking about the woman with the guy and how the woman's so nervous to do that because they never get that interaction in their life. But then once they do it, it's so healing for them. And I actually went on a narcissistic abuse retreat last year. And part of that retreat, it was mostly women. It was me and one other guy and then a bunch of women. I'd say like 12 other women. And the women
like
that,
victims of narcissism.
Yeah, it's like a place to come and commiserate and talk about what's going on and kind of hash through everything in a safe environment with people that get it. Because I think one of the hardest things about, I know one of the hardest things about going through narcissistic abuse is people don't understand what you're talking about. And so you find yourself explaining yourself and trying to like educate people in a way that it's really impossible to do when they haven't experienced it. It's so obtuse to somebody who hasn't been through it. So to sit in that environment and be able to like talk to someone and have them share a story that is not exactly like yours, but it's analogous, like the baseline of it is the same, and you can go like, oh yeah, or you hear somebody else tell another story about something that triggered their understanding of that, the fact that they were in a narcissistically abusive relationship, and then you go, oh, that same thing, that's not what got me there, but I remember that same exact type of thing happening to me. But as part of it, we were wrestling. They were wrestling with each other and
physically wrestling.
Physically wrestling, like just the lady that put it together has a Taekwondo studio.
Okay.
And so she does Taekwondo, and so
she's like kicking people in the head and stuff.
She's just showing women how to punch and showing women how to kick and showing them kind of how to break a grip and all that kind of stuff. And the women doing that with the men, like grabbing the men, and it made them feel powerful again. Like there was one woman that was. It's a beautiful woman. She was like an abused puppy. Was the best way I could describe it. Like she walked in and she was jittery and she couldn't, and it was very disturbing to see, honestly. And I wondered, like, does someone come back for that? It's almost like when you see like a homeless person and they're kind of just dysregulated and whatever. She kind of had that vibe to her. And after going through that, and after she walked up to me and she was like, "Thank you." She's like, "When I first saw you here, I was actually pissed that there was a man here after all she'd been through, because all these women have been abused by men." But she said, but being with you and being around you and seeing a healthy man and a loving man like healed me. And she's like, "Thank you." So we text all the time and keep in touch. But going back, I think to the physicality part, like dogs, wolves, bears, whatever, they play with each other and they get physical and they learn how to use their body and they learn, and
it's like training your body.
That's come out of our society.
Yeah.
That's not built into our society today.
Yeah, it's true. Like we're kind of like no touch. You can't touch each other. Like even growing up, like my brother and I were not allowed to punch each other, but if we got caught even wrestling, we'd get busted, And then you get into jiu-jitsu and you're like, this is what I've been missing my whole life,
Let it out, yeah.
And then like when you have withdrawals, when you're not doing jiu-jitsu, you're grabbing everybody. You're grabbing your friends. Hey, let me show you something. Let me, you just want to like, it's like you miss it. It's definitely natural.
I think that's the German in us though. Because I think,
maybe.
I've always been very physical too, and I remember I had a German, but he's not German, but he grew up in Germany. So his dad was in the military. He's actually like part like Korean and Caucasian, tall guy, like your height. But he was in, what was the Chris Pratt Navy SEAL?
Don't ask me to name movies. I'm terrible.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. He was one of the guys in that. But he grew up in Germany. Like he speaks fluent German and all that stuff, and like went to high school in Germany.
Are they more physical, like Germans, or just?
Well, yeah, like when I'm around him, he's like grabbing, touching me, and physical, and like men and women or whatever. And I feel like it's very more European, and I've always been that way. Like I love physical touch. Like when you talk about love languages, like one of my love languages is is physical touch. And so
I remember when you came to Yosemite and you met up with me, you're like, so I brought this massage gun and like we can kind of massage each other. I was like, bro, we don't know each other that way. You're
make
like,
me a s'more first.
Be sore after a hike, and I was like, okay, let me get to know you first.
When I was in college and as an undergrad, after I got out of the Navy, I stood up a veterans center there, and we had this room, and people would come in and between class and as a place to study or grab coffee or snacks or whatever, just hang out. And eventually, I created this cabal of mostly guys that would massage each other. So you come in and like people would just walk in and see like a dude massaging another dude and like, what is this? I'm just like, hey man, like why not? And so we would literally
it's
just
kind of like what jiu-jitsu
massages.
is, right?
Yeah.
You walk in on that and you're like, what are these guys doing? There's a lot of precarious
why is his
positions.
face there?
You're just like, what is happening? But it's all trust. It's all good. It's heterosexual trust, and it's physical. It's natural. It's so good.
And hopefully as a society, we find a way to get back there more, because I think it benefits everybody. I think we've come to a place, like we went through that Me Too movement, and I remember Andrew Cuomo getting into it for, being, I don't know the details behind that, but the general premise of being physical and touchy and handsy or whatever. And I feel like there isn't a discernible line as to like what's appropriate and what's not appropriate.
Yeah.
And for people who are physical and are loving and touching or whatever, you have to navigate that. But I hope that we find some way as a society to become more physically intimate in a healthy way with each other.
Speaking of like kind of society and going in a direction that's like not physical, I feel like that's what social media, that's what, these devices, the internet, it's in a way, it's like satisfying a need for connection, but taking away the physicality of it, taking away like your physical touch.
Yeah.
And I think it's robbing us. It's not healthy. It's like emotionally and mentally healthy. It's not healthy to be like isolated, even if you think you're connecting with people through a device. There's no touch.
There's so many stimuli that aren't coming along with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the physical touch, the voice, someone's intonation, their energy just when you're around them, that none of that is present in social media.
Yeah.
And it's funny, that's a topic I actually wanted to kind of touch on, because I remember when I first met your kids, and I think they were like 13, 14 at the time, and you don't allow them, you didn't allow any of your kids to have a phone and use social media or anything like that till they were freshmen in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and thinking like, wow, like that must be difficult. And imagining your kids probably gave you heck for doing that. And then I asked them and they're like, no, we think it's great. And they said, we go to school and we see all these kids with their heads down on their phone at lunch and doing this and doing that. And they're like, we're just enjoying the world. And those are like your 13-year-old kids saying that, you know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to have you talk about your mindset and how that went. And,
I had my phone in my hand, and this was just a few years ago, and I was going to go for a walk at night just to go out and get alone and just kind of enjoy the cool air. And I walked around the park, but in the process of walking around the park, I remembered I needed to text my buddy because we were going to do jiu-jitsu the next day, and we're going to like do something in the garage. And so I was like, I need to kind of organize this. So my first lap around the park, I was texting. And then I got done texting and I looked up and I was like, did I walk around the park? I couldn't even remember.
it was like you dissociated. Yeah.
I didn't even feel like I walked around the park. I was like, and it seemed like it was like that, like instant. Like I did a whole lap and I didn't even see it. I didn't experience anything.
No memory of it.
Yeah. So then I was like kind of confused. I was like, did I even walk around the park? I don't remember anything. I don't remember like anything about it. So then I put my phone in my pocket and I did it again. And it seemed like it took 100 times longer. Like it took forever. And I noticed things. I noticed my neighbor's front porch. I noticed the grass. I noticed the smells. And then it just seemed like it lasted at least 10 times longer, at least.
Yeah.
No, 100 times, because the first one felt like nothing. So it was like
Infinitely
1,000
longer.
times longer. Yeah, infinitely longer. And it was kind of like a little aha moment for me. I was like, man, these devices, they're so convenient and they offer so much in regards to like, just
Dopamine.
Yeah. And what is it robbing us of? And mainly I think it's time. Like that was just where I realized that how much time it sucks, because I notice my wife, and she probably notices it with me. If she's on her phone, I could do something. I could like change the oil on my dirt bike and come back, and she's like, where were you? And I was like, I was changing oil. No way you changed the oil that fast. And I'm like, no, I was out there for an hour. There's no way you were out there for an hour. There's no way you did that.
Yeah.
And it's just it's weird how the phone, we think it's saving us time, right? And that's how we justify. But the reality is we're getting sucked into something, and we're just almost
we're giving our time and attention away.
Yeah. And the phone is telling us what to think and telling us, where our thoughts go. And we're not able to tell.
It's the facilitator of mass delusion, I feel like.
Yeah, dude.
And one of the things I learned going through the whole narcissistic abuse recovery thing and delving into that information is I learned a lot about the brain. And one of the things I learned about is intermittent reinforcement. And it's this concept where there's a study where they gave monkeys treats, they pulled this lever. And every time they pulled the lever, they got a treat. Mm-hmm. And then they reduced it down to 80% of the time, but they still kept going. And then they reduced it down, I think it was to like 20% of the time. And their dopamine response in their brain was the highest it could, ever be when they're not receiving the reward, an actual reward. And it just really highlights how, and the way that translates into a relationship is
it like anxiety that they were getting? Like
no,
what
it's
does
just
dopamine come from?
Dopamine is what spurs you to action.
Okay.
So the dopamine response spurs you to action in anticipation of a reward.
So it's the anticipation.
But the reward doesn't have to be there. You can get trained in your brain.
But dopamine is like a chemical released in your brain.
Yeah.
And it's making you want to do something.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's making you want to go into action for that reward.
Okay.
And so in a relationship context, when you're in an abusive relationship, you get intermittent reinforcement by someone, making you feel great and then taking that away. Mm-hmm. And then you're chasing that feeling. You're chasing that reward. You're the monkey pulling the lever.
Yeah.
And every time you pull the lever, it doesn't matter if you're just chasing the original reward, and the dopamine rises and rises and rises. And while you're in that abusive situation, all you're doing almost totally unconsciously is working to try and reel that person back to get that reward out of them.
It's like very controlling, like someone's controlling you without, just by...
It's like in the ether almost,
Yeah.
but it made me realize how people, and then going back to the phone context, they don't appreciate how much we're not actually in control. Like day to day, like you are, your persona and all those kinds of things, but not every single decision you make and thing you do is innately free will.
Yeah.
And I think that's a disturbing thing to realize at the end of the day.
It reminds me of even, like, I talked a little bit about my business, and, my wife used to always ask me, like, how are you so motivated? Like, I don't understand how you stay so motivated. Like, you get up in the morning, and you just go, go, go. And you're like, your business, you're just like going for it. How do you do that? Because she couldn't find motivation to do her thing, you know? And she was watching me do it and just kind of in awe of, and trying to figure out what I was doing. And honestly, like, I'd just be like, I don't know. I just, it's fun. It's like, I'm doing something that's fun. It's a challenge. I'm competitive.
It's rewarding.
It's rewarding. Yeah. And what was really interesting is my mom ended up getting cancer several years back, and she passed away. And the day that she died, the day that she passed on, I remember feeling a little bit like alone in the world, but also I felt like almost like I didn't have much to strive for.
Yeah.
Like, wait, that was the person I was trying to impress, maybe.
Yeah.
I started thinking like maybe it was my mom that gave me the motivation. And maybe it was her lack of approval on me doing photography. She thought I should be doing engineering, finish my degree. I ended up switching my major and going that direction. And it was like, and then my whole life became about proving her wrong and proving that I could do it, even though she didn't think I could.
Did she ever validate you through the course of your career, and like
it
ever
took
have
a long
conversation
time,
with you?
and
like,
I was thinking about that because she would kind of like, I remember going to her house and being like constantly just like trying to impress her, bragging about all my successes, showing her my last like big job that I did like these celebrity weddings or this sponsorship or this lecture, and like trying to impress her. And she would be so like nonchalant about it, like not impressed. But then what I appreciated about her was she would be like, what do you, like, basically like, that's great, honey, but what are you doing for God? Like, what are you doing for, your faith? Like where are you at with God? Cause that's eternal, And so I did appreciate that about her, because it was like bringing me back to more eternal things, less, and I don't know if you understand that, but it's, less like the here and now, and thinking more about like forever. But she did withhold praise. And I don't know if that was just her way to motivate me, to get me to fight. She saw working. And I think about that, and I think about, like, do I do that with my family? Do I do that with my kids? Do I withhold praise because I'm afraid that if I praise them too much, they're going to stop working, And it's a form of me controlling them in a way, or me motivating them. Is it right or wrong? I don't know.
Well, what they say
if
is
it's positive, is it right or wrong?
You should praise your kids for their effort.
Yeah.
For showing up. Like, you praise them for going to jiu-jitsu, not for hitting the triangle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. For trying, for giving their best effort.
I think far too many parents.
For getting off the couch.
And I have moments like this where I kind of catch myself, like, you praise your kids for being cute or pretty or, things that are kind of.
Things they didn't have any control over.
Yeah. And it's just not, I try, and I always high five my daughter. And anytime she does something good, just like reinforce her and be like, I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Yeah.
Not I'm not proud of you for being pretty. I'm not proud of you for being, I'm proud of you for the effort you're putting in. Like, her language skills are just out of this world. And I think it's part of being a COVID baby. And she's just like a big brainy kid. She's always thinking and always playing, and she's always, having things going on. And you can tell.
Yeah.
But she's just super smart. And so her language for a 3.5-year-old is absolutely mind blowing. And her mom's a speech pathologist. She feels the same way. And she's so conversational and funny, and she's cracking jokes. And I said to her last night, I was like, honey, I'm so proud of you for, I know she knows what I mean. And it might sound crazy to a lot of people talking about a 3.5, but she knows what I mean.
100%,
so
she knows.
I tell her, like, I'm proud of you for that. And I'm proud that you pay attention and that you try hard. And like, it's the trying. It's, and I can see it in her that she gets, excited by that and motivated by that.
Yeah.
And I see it in jiu-jitsu, and I see it in ballet, and she's just a kid that, like, she goes in there and then she's doing it, and then she's coming out and she's like always high-fiving, and it's a great thing to feel.
There's a difference between a dad who is putting their kid into a sport for the kid or for themselves.
Yeah.
I remember my buddy, Hamula Bahal, he's a world-class jiu-jitsu fighter. He's won multiple world championships. People in jiu-jitsu know his name. He told me that he used to play soccer, and his dad was like pushing. I think it was his dad was pushing him to play soccer, and he was playing club soccer, traveling, really good. Like, he could have been pro at soccer. He went far with it, but since it was his dad's and not his, he ended up kind of like rebelling in a way, in a sense, and kind of backing off or getting burnt out, and then went into jiu-jitsu, and then he took that to like crazy heights, like way further than he took soccer. But I always wonder, like, and I was afraid to put my kids in to jiu-jitsu if they weren't like, if it wasn't for them. I wanted to make sure it wasn't for me trying to push them. I didn't want them to have burnout and not be in love with the sport I fell in love with. I wanted them to find it on their own and it to be for them. And I see you with Bella, like, it's like for her, right? It's not like you're not putting these demands on her, like, you're going to be good and fight through. But at the same time,
I want her to do well, but it's not like I have any emotional attachment to that. I want her to do well for her, not so I can be like, my kid is blah, 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 blah. It's like
living vicariously through her. Like, I couldn't make it, so you better, you're going to make it for dad,
I just want her to have all the experiences in life to help her live a quality and healthy life. And so physicality is one of those things, like, going from being like, I was chubby when I was like middle school, early days of high school, but generally I was always a fit guy. It was like 215, 220 pounds, Navy guy, very active. I used to lead PT for the Navy, for my command or whatnot. And going from that to being fat and sedentary was the worst thing for my mental health. Because every day you walk by a mirror and I saw a stranger. I saw some guy I didn't know that didn't look anything like me, and I had to look at him every day. And then I had to look at him and go, you're the reason he's here. Your decisions and your choices, and you're the reason he hasn't left. And it will destroy your mental health. So for my kids, I want to give them that activity and that motor. My oldest doesn't have that, honestly. She's naturally much more mellow. I mean, when she was a kid, she would, fall asleep real easy, and you had to like wake her up. Like, she's very like kind of like groggy and just chill and whatnot. But it's something that concerns me at the end of the day, because I want her to know what it feels like to be in your body and to feel comfortable in your skin and whatnot. But with my youngest, fortunately, I'm able to provide that for her. And that's all I want to see out of it. I want her to just have the best quality of life she can have, and put the tools out for her to figure out what that is for her, and then take them and go build her life. Let's talk about your career, because you mentioned that you were talking about your business. You're a solopreneur. You've been doing your own thing for a really long time and living that life of an entrepreneur as a photographer, and a very successful one. So maybe just touch on, we talked about jiu-jitsu, talked about your kids a little bit. Let's touch on what that has brought to your life and the lessons you've taken from that, and talk a little bit about what it's like to be in that seat.
Yeah, so I think that the business, being self-employed, anyone out there who's self-employed knows that you got to kind of have a high risk tolerance, even to get it started. It's feast and famine. There's days where you're like, am I going to make it? Like, you're probably thinking about, like, if you're going to make a podcast, your career, am I going to make it? It's the unknown, the question. But I think
I definitely wake up some nights in a hot sweat.
Yeah.
About not having income and like figuring this thing and trying to do it and all that stuff. Yeah.
Totally. I think everyone goes through that, but that in a way, that's kind of the excitement of it. And that's kind of what life should be, is the unknown, pursuing the unknown and trying to make something out of, like trying to answer that question for yourself. And I think that's what photography brought me was, I thought growing up that you had to do it a certain way. And I feel like school and your parents kind of like, in a way, just kind of like push you towards this narrow path of,
they inculcate and indoctrinate you.
Yeah. High school, college, job, and working for the man, working for a bigger company.
And going back to like the whole thing about putting your kids in sports, for that's the whole thing of your parents want you to go off and do that, because that's the proof in the pudding that they were successful parents, that you went off and got a degree and got a successful job and you're stable.
I put my kids through college, they have a job, and they're genuinely concerned and they want stability for you. And maybe all they knew, because they were also programmed, all they knew was this is how you survive in this world. You work for the man, And so when I broke off on my own, it was a big question mark. It was like, and I remember the day that I made that decision to do photography for a living and not electrical engineering, which I went to school for 4 years. I went to school. I decided to change my major. I had 1 year left to go, 5-year plan, and then I ended up changing my major. But that day, it felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I was like, because when I made that decision,
what did I just do? Yeah.
And there was consequences. My mom basically cut off financial support, so I was basically on my own. I had just taken a loan out, like an American Express loan, which is terrible interest. It was like, I want to say it was like 20%, 30%, something crazy in the interest rate. I took out a $20,000 loan and bought a bunch of lighting and everything else. That weight was on my shoulders. And then the other photography jobs I was working at the time, they ended up like finding out that I was starting my own business, and one by one I lost those jobs because they thought I was going to be competition. So it all came to a head at once, and I was like, crap, like the weight of the world. But that was kind of also the fun in it, and the motivation behind it was like, I want to make this happen. My business has been like, I never regret it. There's been times throughout my career, and every once in a while when business is slow, I think like, man, it'd be kind of cool just to have a paycheck and just go clock in and clock out, not have to think about it. But then when if I ever think like that, it quickly gets that question mark gets put out by the freedom that I have, like the
ability to go to Sequoia with your kids and just block off a weekend and say like, not doing anything else. I'm not taking any shoots. I don't owe anybody anything. No one's calling me. Being your own boss.
Like making your own decisions. The more harder you work, the more reward. You can take time off. No one's, it's pretty rad, So I think anyone that has a desire to do their own business should, and even if it's to fail, even if it's to learn.
Failure's fine. I think
totally.
That was one of the biggest impetuses for me as well, to do that, because getting divorced and becoming a single parent dad and having a 3.5-year-old kid that's like just wild, private equity is not the place to, be successful and have a quality of life that you'd want to have. So it was hard to step away from a job and a career post-Navy that I worked so hard to ascertain. And I was in a place where I was making really good money and I was working on really cool stuff with really smart people. And, it gives you a lot of pride when people go, oh, where do you work? Oh, Oak Tree. Like, oh, and people who are in the industry, like, oh, they automatically think and believe you to be and give you this deference that you're this smart person because you have to be to go get into Oak Tree. And so it was just like this subtle badge of honor of having like achieved that. And then
you walked away from like a big salary to do this.
Big salary. I was
really impressed when I found that out.
I was making $400,000 a year. And
not many people could walk away from a $400,000 a year job.
We'll see if it was the right
you were
decision.
Working from home, so you had part of the entrepreneurship going. Like kind of one of the main benefits of being a self-employed is you get to work from home. And kind of like don't have a boss breathing down your back. You had part of it, and you had the big paycheck. What was the main motivator that
it was multiple things. I mean, the biggest thing was the kid situation, because my first daughter, I was in the Navy, and long story we won't get into here, but I felt this obligation to my commitment to my service to my country that I think there's other extenuating circumstances to why my daughter was not around me at that time, but I just knew when I looked at today, I was like, I'm not going to look back on my life and think about the fact that I made X amount of money certain year. Like, that's not going to be what gets me through life. It's going to be, I got to play with my kid in the grass and I got to feed her dinner and give her a bath and read her a book. And I was not in a position in my career at that time where I could own my own calendar and be my own boss and kind of have the ability to be the dad that I wanted to be.
Yeah,
and
you were working crazy hours, right?
Yeah, I was working 100-hour weeks. You know, I'd
100-hour weeks.
Days where I get up at 5:30 in the morning and then I'll go bed till 2, and then I get back up at 5:30 again and do it all over again. And that wasn't every day, but it was plenty of days, and it's just a very demanding job. And mentally, you have to be thinking about, you're working on 6 or 7 different deals, portfolio companies that you own, new things that you're looking at, and you have to have all that stuff fresh in your mind right when you get on the phone with somebody and be like, hey, what do they do in revenue this year? And what's the multiple on this?
In addition to the...
Yeah, you got to be on. Yeah. And I saw myself having my, she'd come into the room and I'm working. I'm like, okay, honey, go watch TV, go watch cartoons. And I just, in that moment, one day I just saw myself going, I'm not going to sit here and be the dad that's like ushering my kid off to go sit on the couch by herself so I can make money for what?
For what?
And so that was the biggest reason. And then the other reason was just everything I had gone through in life and that I experienced. I used to sit and watch podcasts while I was working in private equity. I'd be in Excel building a model for a deal or whatever, and I'd be listening to Jordan Peterson or Joe Rogan or Chris Williamson or Stephen Bartlett's another one, the Diary of a CEO. And I'd find myself wanting to be in the conversation with them and going, and they'd touch on a topic that I had knowledge about or an opinion about, and I'd be like talking out loud, like, yes, this or that, or no, you need to understand, And so I've always loved conversation. Like even here right now, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels natural. It just feels like me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of resolved myself to try this out because I felt like I have a lot within me to bring to the world. And I spent a lot of time in my life denying that or feeling self-conscious about that. And I'm at a point where I'm trying to embrace the fact that I'm a very competent man and use that as a tool to spread knowledge and help other people, because someone might listen to this podcast and hear you talk about not giving your kids phones, and maybe they never thought about it that way, and they hear that and they hear you and they see you and they go, you know what, I'm going to try that out.
Yeah.
And just this one little conversation can help a parent have the resolve to do what's right by their kids.
For sure.
Or getting into jiu-jitsu, maybe somebody hears this and they think, oh, I'm at that point where you are, where I'm sitting on my couch with Dorito dust in my belly button, drinking soda, and like no prospects in life, and I haven't touched a woman in 5 years, kind of thing. And they hear this and they go, I'm gonna go do jiu-jitsu because I feel like that's where I am, and let me go try that out.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's the desire and point of this podcast, besides replacing my large salary.
Yeah.
Is to hopefully be a part of that.
Yeah, I think these types of conversations are so much more valuable than, well, I mean, everyone needs entertainment once in a while, but whenever I flip on the TV, and
so fleeting.
It is, and just some of the cheesy, crappy shows and movies that are out, and I'm just like, I would rather watch YouTube with real people talking about real stuff that I'm interested in, or hear people bring new ideas to me that I never thought of, to open doors for me,
expand
to
your mind,
make my life better.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit on the couch and escape life.
I want to be in life.
I want to learn how to do life better, and a podcast, a conversation could spark that. So I think this is definitely a noble profession, and you can help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Having the tough talks and talking and being vulnerable,
and wide ranging. Yeah. It's gonna get pretty deep, I think, over time, as I start to find my voice in this and open up myself and find ways to tell my story. I think.
And find God.
My God is the universe, and I think we've had a long conversation about this one time. We didn't intend to, and we got in this long circular conversation about our views, and you're arguing with me about radiocarbon dating.
we could die, and I could be totally wrong.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
But, it's one of those things you don't know until you die.
Yeah, I think my frame of reference, going back to the kind of cultural Christian concept, is I replace God with the universe. And I think we're all connected. We're all made of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not special. You're not special. We just happen to be an amalgamation of material that understands that we exist, and we're cognizant of that fact. But outside of that, I don't think there's anything special about it. I think it is a beautiful thing when you really open it up and realize how much there is out there in the world, and how insignificant you really are and the infinite beauty and what you identify. You know, we had this conversation where you're like, how could you not believe in a creator when you see all this stuff? And mine was like the opposite. It's like, who could create all that? You know, my premise is it's nature moving forward. It's entropy. It's, you know, the natural order of things, and we just get to enjoy it. You know, and what I think about is, you know, because you think one day you'll kick the bucket and you'll go up to the pearly gates and you'll be hanging out with God, and I think one day some part of me is going to be billions of, you know, miles away from here, a part of some other thing, and another part's going to be somewhere else, you know, and I'm just a part of it, and I'm just moving through the world, and everything that's a part of me used to be a part of something else. And you think about when you eat food, you know, you eat a chicken or you eat whatever, and like at one point it was a chicken, and now it's your nails and it's your hair, and that's how I kind of view life, and I just walk through life viewing everything through that lens, and it, you know, that gives me peace, because I don't fear death, because I'm never really dying. Just what is within me is just promulgating out into the universe.
Well, that's one thing we could definitely agree on is that this life is not it. It's not all, right? There's something, like, there's no way. That doesn't make any sense. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense that when we die, it's over. To me, that's weird. That's just like,
this form is over.
Yeah, but like our spirit, like there's like something that moves on, because it just like our consciousness, our life, who we are, if it just ends, to me, that takes way more effort and strength and faith even to believe that would just end.
I think it doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's stored within us, because like if you hear and listen to, like, they talk about how the amount of data you can store in DNA, and it's like more than any compute that we, you know,
like store it, like when the body dies, it, like everything dies
like,
with it.
No, just practically, you know, they're working on using DNA, because the way it's coded, you know, the proteins and all that stuff, it's like, that's not binary, but it's a way that you can encode and encrypt data and information. And using DNA, they could, I can't remember how many terabytes or whatever off the top of my head it is, but it's an astronomical amount of information that can be stored in like a single strand of DNA, and there are billions of them in your body, you know. So the experiences you have and the things you see and do and learn to cook and climb or whatever, I feel like that all just gets trapped inside you. You know, it all gets imbued inside you. And as
seems like very wasteful though.
No, I mean, as you move forward, like, where do ideas come from? Where do these thoughts that we have that kind of seem to come from nowhere, where do they come from? And part of me suspects that it comes from the other things within you that you've collected throughout your existence, that find their way into your zeitgeist and into your mind and into existence. And we call that art, and we call that creativity, and we call that whatever. But it's really just folding over. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, like I'm sure we have a lot that we agree on. I'm thinking like for example, when my grandmother passed away, I was holding her hand. And have you ever been with someone that like died? Like, okay, so like when somebody dies, it doesn't, in my opinion, it didn't. I've been with, I think, 3 people passed away in my hands, and it just seems weird to think that when they died, because when they passed away, it just felt like their body became like completely lifeless, but then it was like,
you feel them go cold. That was the creepiest thing for
like
me.
Once
was
they go cold, it's like that's not them anymore. Their face, they don't have facial expressions and all that stuff, and it's just like, it's like, you know, you can envision, maybe it's just my upbringing, you know, learning all this stuff, growing up and being taught this stuff, but it's like you almost could like feel their spirit leave. Like it's like it's no longer there. Yeah. But it's like, how could they be so full of life and ideas and thoughts, and their brain is getting smarter? You know, some people get you know, disease and stuff, but like my mom, when she passed away, she was like alive. It's just her body was dying, but her mind was alive. And so it doesn't make any sense to me for that just to die with her. It's like, no, that's going somewhere. I don't know where. I mean, if I believe the Bible, I know where, right? But as far as like going nowhere, I know that seems false to me. Yeah. You know.
And that's my feel, is that it goes out.
So it just goes out, but it's not staying in that body, or is it trapped in that body, and that body gets buried, and then it's just done?
No, I think it's, you know, that body goes into the ground, And eventually one day, like you bury it in a casket, it doesn't get, in with the soil, but like
just absorbs back.
It just
into the
absorbs back, you know, and we're taking things out of the earth that are 140 million years old and burning it and putting it into the atmosphere, and one day that'll be us. And, one day the sun's going to blow up and earth will be gone. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
We'll be long gone by then. But that's something that also kind of like is just an interesting vein to go down, is just how you were talking about. It kind of gives you peace. For me, it's just interesting, the idea of how infinite life really is, if you believe what I believe. And I've found myself struggling to, at times, find the peace and the purpose, because you're like, I'm really stressed out right now and I have all this stuff going on, and like, what is it really for when you really think about it? Because it really doesn't matter. Like, it matters because I'm here and I have to get through the day and I have to put food on my table and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, all this stuff is, you think about 200 years ago, you don't know your ancestors. You don't know their names and what they did and what they experienced. And, and
wouldn't it be cool if we could see them, talk to them?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would love to. I would.
So what I'm saying is what I believe is better, because I get to go see them, talk to them.
Well, maybe you can phone me up once you get up there. You can like tap me on the shoulder if you go before I do.
I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I could be wrong. All I'm saying is it just seems more fun to believe that. Definitely more like hopeful and inspiring. And when I think about what matters and what doesn't matter, like my actions matter because like I'm an individual, but I'm made in the image of God, and I'm ultimately accountable for my actions. And someday, like, it goes with me. It's not just like, oh, it goes back to the earth. And then in a way, it's like I'm thinking, if I was living like that, where I didn't believe that there was any accountability as far as when I died, then I don't know. Like, I wonder how I would live differently.
The accountability is the death, because I think that's why I'm very happy. I've reached a phase just recently where I'm very happy with where I am in my life, because prior to this, I feel like I was not really living in a lot of ways. I wasn't being true to who I am. I wasn't, I'm 37 years on this earth, and I spent the last 10 years not doing much of anything I wanted to do. I wanted to rock climb. I wanted to do jiu-jitsu. Wanted to cook. I wanted to travel to places. I wanted to make new friends and experience new things. And I was just working and being a husband and working and being a father and working, and that was it. And so I think that where I am in life now is I've separated myself from that environment to where I can have a blank slate again and pursue life. And I think the reality is just the point of living is to get as much out of life and give as much back as you possibly can while you're here.
Yeah. Well, tell me something, because if you leave a $400,000 a year job, for someone out there who might think you're crazy, do you think that the process of building a business from scratch is more the dream than retiring? Say you were, as an alternative, you just saved up enough money from your job. Say you live below your means and you saved $300,000 a year, invested it, and then, you did that for 10 years or 20 years, and you could retire and do whatever you want later. Why did you do it now and just choose this path with the risk, with all the risk involved and all the, why?
Originally, the plan was to get into private equity, and everybody knows you make tons of money. And so the goal was, I'll do private equity. I had fun doing it. It was interesting. It was challenging, but I wouldn't say it's like I got up out of bed every day like, I can't wait to read these financial reports, But the concept was I can go make $3, $4, $5 million and have that much cash in the bank account, and then go do something entrepreneurial that I really wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to that point. I didn't stay in the career long enough to make the big nugget where you like back away and you can just kind of like play the field.
That's the question. Why not? Why didn't you stay in it longer to do that?
Like I said, going back, I just got to that point where with the kid situation and being
in
order to be success, and this as a man, I'm sure, to be truly successful, especially if you're going to have kids, you have to have good partnership, and you have to have a partner that has your back, and you have to have a partner that brings you peace and supports you and is marching to the same beat as you. And I didn't have that. That's obviously why I'm divorced. And so it was a struggle to perform and keep up with people that don't have kids, or have kids but have a wife at home that's doing that, And I the agreement I had with my ex before we got married is that she wouldn't work when we had kids, and that I was going to my goal was to make $300K a year. And then once I was doing that, you know, we could have kids and be comfortable, because it's California. It sounds crazy to people listening, but it's California. Like in California, that sounds like a big number, but everything, you know, it's all relative, right? If I was living in Colorado, I'd have a mansion and but in California, it's like middle class, you know? So, but at the end of the day, I just really knew that it wasn't going to be what I wanted to do long term, even with that. And despite the money, I just felt like backing away now was the right time to do it, because I didn't have it in me anymore. Going back to what you're talking about, how Julie would ask you, how do you do it? Like, how do you get up every day and go? And I was at a point where I hit rock bottom and I couldn't get up anymore at 5. There was points where I could barely get out of bed.
Like your daughter had a big part in that. Like you did not want to miss out.
Yeah.
But then so you were like, I'm done with this, right?
It was that, and just I couldn't perform at the level that it was like, you're a Hall of Fame running back, but you're in year 12 and you've blown your knee out and you've had this and you've had that, and you just can't do it anymore. And I felt like I had reached that point where everything I'd been through in my life,
you're burnout.
I was burnt out, and I didn't have the passion for it. And I just felt myself dissipating in a way.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what can I do that will allow me to channel what I really value? Because I value relationships, and I value communication, and I value knowledge and information and learning. And, you know, in private equity, you don't get a lot of that. It's very like black and white. It's like, this company makes this much and we're willing to invest this much at this whatever, and that's that. Yeah. And the company could really not be a good company, like something that you're proud of or something that you really want to invest in from a holistic perspective. But it's like, on paper, we can make a 18% return if we put in $50 million to whatever. And that didn't satiate me at all. I feel like this will satiate me. And it's not, the whole owning the business part isn't the, you know, because that's the hard part, right? Is like, you have to set up the infrastructure, and you've got to build the podcast studio, and you've got to do the accounting and set up the LLC and get your business license and blah, 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 and hire people when you need help and this and that and the other. And that's not the exciting part. But the exciting part is like living in my truth and doing something that gives me joy.
I think it's the opposite. I think that all that stuff's the easy part. The hard part is actually like having the guts to chase your dream.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. Most people are stuck because.
Well, definitely, it was a scary thought. You know, I ruminated about it a lot, and I, you know, got to the point where I was just like sitting in this chair in my office and just like, do I do this? Like, am I crazy? You know? Mm-hmm. And I just called my boss, who's a really good friend of mine. He's going to be on the podcast soon. And I just looked him dead in the eye and I said, I just can't do this anymore. I just don't have it in me anymore to do this. And I got to go do something else. And so it's scary, and who knows if it works out. But I think at the end of the day, for me, success in this will be having had a lot of really great conversations and collected a lot of really great vignettes of human beings that I can share with the world, and been able to be 100% authentically myself throughout the entire process of it. Because like you said, in photography, you're having to pomp and circumstance and smile and shake hands and schmooze and try and get work so you can become known and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very inauthentic process. Yeah. And in private equity and any other thing, it's the same thing. Like, you got to go have lunch with people that you probably would never actually commiserate with any other way, but you got to like make them feel like there's some commonality and chumminess and work. You know, you got to go to a management meeting and sit with a bunch of strangers and pick apart their business. And while you're doing that, you want to do it in a way where you get the information you need from them, but you're also likable and you're not off-putting and making them be like, well, I don't want to work with those guys. They just ask a bunch of questions and they don't really feel like human beings, you know. But it's a lot of not being able to be yourself. Yeah. And so that's what I wanted to do with this, just be me.
Do you think that someone could be themselves in any career? Or do you think that certain careers lend itself more? Or if you're in the wrong career, you can't be yourself?
I think certain people have certain talents. I don't think everybody taps into those. You know, somebody might have been a really great painter and they become an accountant, you know, or somebody might have been really great leather worker and they work at a machine shop, you know.
I honestly don't think we were designed to do one career our whole life.
Yeah.
I think that like God's a variety freak, obviously by the things that he made. There's so much variety in this world.
Thankfully, because I like variety.
Yeah, and I think that we're made in his image, and we're all variety freaks, and our society is telling us that we need to stick to one thing and specialize. And that's what happens when you put a bunch of people in a big city. It enables you to specialize, because now you don't have to do it all. If you're out on a farm, you'd have to learn how to farm.
You got to do the fencing. You got to know how to feed the cattle.
You got to do it all. You got to build your own house,
plumbing.
And honestly, I think we'd be happier doing that. Yeah. I think we'd be much happier doing it all.
Have you seen Thomas Massey's video? He built his house. He's a congressman from Kentucky.
No.
Yeah. So Thomas Massey, I'll go ahead and send you the video.
Okay.
He's a congressman from Kentucky. And he built his entire house from scratch, like everything on his property, with everything from his land. So he would take fallen down trees and drag them and shape them and whatever. And it took him like 9. He said him and his wife lived in a double wide trailer for I think it was like 9 years with 4 kids.
Sick.
It's a good wife.
Yeah. Seriously.
But he like did all the plumbing. Like there's like a pond up at the top of the hill from his house, and he installed pipe. And he's like, for every whatever, he went to MIT, so he's like, every square foot of whatever you get so much pressure. So he's like, I get 88 psi at the tap, and I don't even have any. There's no mechanical. It's just a hose, But yeah, I mean, he talks about it and planting trees and doing this and doing that, and it's like, that's when you're alive and living. And that's another thing where you're like feeling your body. You're feeling the sun on your skin, and you're feeling yourself sweat, and you're feeling your heartbeat. And you're
getting it
alive.
all. You're getting variety.
Yeah.
And I think we're designed to continue learning, the best part about life for me is the improvement. It's like seeing improvement. Like jiu-jitsu is so fun because there's always room to improve. You're always seeing that growth.
Yeah.
Like learning something new. I'm always doing new things and getting obsessed with them because I get obsessed with that learning curve. And I feel like if we're just stuck in one career, told to do one thing our whole life,
what existence
you get to
is
a
that?
kind of a plateau where you've learned so much and you just get bored with it. And you're just like, I want to do something else. And so someone told me once that you can have like multiple careers in your life, like many, many careers in your life, and don't just do one thing. I think that like, if we don't necessarily even need a career. We can literally go out, find some land, and just
make it happen.
Spend your time building your future on that land, make it happen. Obviously you'd probably need land that you could farm and, some stuff.
It's gotta be tenable land.
But food grows out of the ground. Air is there. You can breathe,
And water.
You can build shelter.
Yeah.
You need water. If you maybe build near a stream.
I think about that with like there's a island called Sentinel Island off the coast of India. And there's the Sentinelese people that live there. And they believe it's like this African like pygmy tribe that boated across and ended up there and stayed there, and they've been there, they think, for like 40,000 years. And it's this little small island with the trees and a little bit of beach, and it's like mostly just trees, and they just sit there for thousands of years and eat and hang out with their family. They don't have television, they don't have sports, they don't have anything.
I bet life feels longer to them.
Yeah, and more joyous. Like I imagine if you
not
took
in
a
a bad way,
drone
not like,
and just
oh my
like
gosh.
sat over where they are and like snuck it in there where we couldn't see it, you would just see them laughing and giggling and playing and doing
every
activities.
Third world country I've been to, like on mission trips or like charity trips,
kids playing soccer and
the smiles, the laughter, they're singing, and I don't know if it's just because like the white man showed up and brought them money, they're bringing money or fixing their well, but I don't think so.
No,
I
not
think
at all.
they're trying to show us
this is what it's about.
Like they probably feel sorry for us. They probably understand. And so they have TV. A lot of these countries, even in small shacks. I was in Amazon River, and there was like satellites on top of these little shacks on the river, and they're watching TV. So they see it. They get to see it. And they understand. But man, after going to a third world country and being in there, and I heard some of the people as part of our group trying to mentor these kids and tell them to get out, get into the city and go educate yourself and get into the schools and escape out of the village. And I'm thinking like, I want to live in this village, double down on your village, like grow this place, like invest in the people here. Like you guys are already happy. You got it made.
We don't have the true essence of villages anymore. Like you have Manhattan Beach and Hermosa Beach and La Cañada and this and this, but it's like there's community within that to a certain extent. Like I go to my jiu-jitsu gym and people come from that, and like but as a general community, it feels so much more desperate. It feels so much more disconnected. Than ever before, and everybody feels that.
Yeah, we get so efficient, and we get good at like making money quick, which money is just buying yourself some time for the future, right?
Yeah.
But then in a way, it's like part of the joy of life is working and enjoying the fruit of your labor, you know, like working. And it's part of the joy of life, improving, getting better.
It's going back to the competence thing for me. Like that's one of the things that I went on a couple dates this week, and it kind of like highlighted that for me. You're talking about how you pick on something and then you just start going after it and getting good at it and getting good at it and getting good at it. And next thing you know, you're good at it and you're great at it, and it's something you have. And I was going on a date with a girl, and I was talking to, she was younger, she's like 10 years younger than me, and was talking about my life and things I'm in, and she was like so shocked by them, you know? And I usually started to think like how many things I've built within me that make me who I am, you know, riding the motorcycle, the jiu-jitsu, being in the Navy, I write poetry, like there's all these different things. I've spent time getting good at working on cars. I can work on pretty much anything, building the studio. Yeah. And you just wake up one day and you realize like, I'm a competent individual, you know, and you don't necessarily appreciate that. But then once you build that, it gives you so much to go out into the world and enjoy the world.
Yeah. My friend Quinn, he's like, how old is he? 22, 23. I love hanging out with people that are young and they have a different perspective on life. They don't have money. They don't like they don't have like
they
a
still have
big
the stars
career.
in their eyes.
Yeah, but what Quinn he uses this phrase. He says he like unlocks things. So he's like unlocked riding motorcycles in his life. It's almost like a video game. Like
you achievements.
Unlock achievements. Yeah. So it's like he's unlocked jiu-jitsu. He's unlocked motorcycles. He's unlocked surfing. And I think that's what life's about. Like unlocking as many cool things as you can.
I just unlocked stand-up paddleboarding. I went and bought an inflatable one, and I took my daughter the other day, and I was like, some of the things that are shocking is like how easy some things are, and you don't take advantage of them. Like going down to Long Beach, plugging in my thing, and it takes like nothing. Yeah. And I can go out there and be on the water and be in the sun and be doing something fun and feel it on your skin. Yeah. And I find myself when I'm in those moments looking around and going, it's crazy how many people aren't utilizing that. Like you go to next time you're at a harbor, like you're in Marina or you're on Long Beach or wherever you are, and you look at all the boats, like most of them are just chilling. Yeah. People have these opulent houses with these docks that go into working. And like 90% of the time it's just sitting there because they're off working, trying to make more, or they're sucked up with their TV, or you know, they're doing some project or whatever to validate their existence, you know, and it's like you could literally be on like people talk about how when you make money and you become rich, like you get bored. I think that's total crap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's like you're a boring person if you get bored with it. Because I would have no problem spending ample amounts of time on a Duffy, chilling with my family, listening to music, and just you know, and then coming back and playing sport or doing something crafty, and you know, then going out and going to Sequoia.
The more money you have, the busier you get. And in a way, it's almost like you got to be really careful not to like dig yourself in a hole of busyness, because whether it's maintenance of all the stuff you bought, you know, whether it's maintaining, whether it's managing your money, you know, all those things, it's like it does. You think money buys you freedom, but in a way, it could buy you captivity. Yeah. And you're now a slave to your stuff. So I think money is scary to me because I don't trust myself with it, because I buy toys. I buy like.
I've noticed.
Yeah, and then I have to maintain those toys, and they're fun for a while, and then I want to move on to other toys.
And you have to customize those toys.
Yeah, customize. Yeah, you got to do like get that toy the best it could possibly be, and then it's like it's either one, it's kind of like on your conscience because you don't want to sell it because you still like that thing, but it's taking up space or it's taking up resources. It's costing you, you know, overhead to like maintain it. Yeah. So there's all these things that I don't know. It's like. We got to hold everything loosely. I think like, and the more money you have, it gets harder and harder because you start acquiring things and you can afford it. But then it's like, it becomes a job. Like some of my very wealthy clients, I see them and they're like the
they have to take care of stuff they don't even use.
Are actually like not assets. Yeah. They're things and there's a guilt to it also. Like they even want to loan it out to people because
it's just sitting there.
Yeah. And
well, tell them to call me.
Right. Right. And I'm thinking the more I have as far as like stuff, it's actually also hard for me since I earned it and I fought for it and I worked hard, my blood, sweat, and tears went into buying that thing or those things. It's hard for me to hold it loosely and let it go and even give it away. Yeah. Now it's like, you know, that's mine. I earned it. And now it becomes like, almost like I compare it to like Gollum, you know, like holding on to the precious. Yeah. Like it's like,
But then when you really sit back
dangerous.
and think about a lot of the stuff you have, and I'm sure like me, you use it to some extent. It's not like it has no utility. But when you really think about how much stuff you acquire and how much of your time goes into acquiring that thing via how much work you've put in,
Yeah.
and how little you actually use it, it's kind of just like disturbing.
Yeah.
You go up in your attic, you're like, oh yeah, I got that thing, and it has utility, but I never really used it. But it cost me $1,200, which is like 2 days of work. And you just think, it's also a weird dynamic for sure.
It is.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you coming and having this conversation. I hope we can have tons more just like this one.
Yeah, for sure.
And
So much more to talk about, just not enough time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And it's hot in the studio for those listening.
Cameras are overheating.
Yeah. So we're about to go roll jiu-jitsu and do a comp class, and then Mike and I are going to go for a nice little hike tomorrow and, a bike ride to kind of cap this off.
Cool.
Peace.
See you, man.